So we are doing a combined best 11. The blue is obviously going to represent a player from League One. The like brownish, goldish color is going to represent the championship. Now, this is not necessarily to say this one player is better than this player. This is saying who did the best relative to their competition. So we can work back to front. We can work forward to back, and we don't have a set formation. If you were here for the mid-season all USL team, then you kind of know that we just sort of make it work. I think we end up with a 4-4-2 diamond, Mark Lowry style, in for our mid-season. So we are very much just trying to go with the flow. If I am trying to start this off top, I think that you can't start this conversation off without Nick Marcanic up top.
There's no debate. I mean, the guy across all competitions ended up with 30 goals. Like, that's an undeniable, one of the best seasons ever in league history.
I mean, it set the league record in terms of goals scored within a year, and I think it's a record that may stand for the next decade or so. It's hard to have this team and not have Marcanic as part of it.
So if we are going to look at the other side, if we're going to say, is there a League One player? People are going to say a Liam McKinnon, but he's also technically a winger. So do we want to put him at a wing position like he's supposed to be, or do we want to put him up top like League One has him?
Just kind of put McKinnon in like a weird forward leftish spot, and then we can decide as we like settle into a formation. Because I do think like he won the Golden Ball in League One. He led Golden Boot and Player of the Year award, because I get confused with all the monikers. So critical to what Greenville did. That ability to cut inside, or rather get goals on the fast break as well. Everything that McKinnon did was terrific for the Triumph.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to spell his name because I don't know if it's a Mick or a Mac. I always get confused.
Yeah. Mac can.
Yeah, we got there. Yeah, I got there. I just had to look it up. All right. Now, again, there is a jumble of mess on the screen. So,
don't worry, if you're somebody who's an audio listener, I have no idea what's going on either, so you're not missing out on much.
Yeah, no, this will be posted onto social medias later. But so right now, our two forwards, as of now, we are looking at McKinnon and Marcanic. Is there anybody who is like, he is my lock, ride or die, can't take him out for me?
I think I maybe want to say that Dolabella and Taylor Davila both belong in the midfield. Am I crazy?
I was going to say Dolabella for sure, so okay. I will go ahead and put that one in.
I'm happy for it. The thing about Pedro Dolabella. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I was just going to say I'll echo Dolabella as well.
Yeah, the thing about Dolabella within that Union Omaha team, like ostensibly somebody who's starting as a kind of box-to-box or even defensive-minded midfielder, and he can play that position ably when the team is in a low block. But he's so good about getting forward, getting engaged on the edges of the box, making those late arriving runs, and really punctuating things when Omaha needs like a cut back to the edge of the area to score. He's a player that's just terrific, and the soccer IQ is undeniably great. So happy to have him in this team.
I am cool with I'm more than happy with going Taylor Davila. I think he was my like midfielder, or like one of my first team midfielders that I put in there. So I am all good with putting Davila. All good there.
Yeah,
everybody good.
He's somebody who I think if he's number 2 in my MVP race, let's say, like Nick Marcanic being undeniable, what he did creatively in partnership with Elijah Winder, whether it is the set pieces, whether it's kind of those deft turns in the midfield when he receives, the ability to pick up second balls within that Danny Cruz system. He's like really critical to the identity of Lou City and kind of brought that extra level when his team needed it.
So I am going to go ahead throw another Do we want to go ahead and do Malloy? Because I feel like you can't. Or sorry, no, not Malloy. Excuse me. Back up. Graham Smith, because he was my personal USL Championship defender of the year.
So this is this gets into the question that I personally went Matt Mahoney as the defender of the year, but then how are we going to end up sorting out the shape? I think I'm happy with Smith to start off with at a minimum, though.
Okay. What about a second center back if we want to go down that road? I like Jordan Skelton from One Knox. He was definitely him and Mitch Osmond were kind of toss up for me for League One center back.
So hear me out as we talk through this. Yeah. I'm thinking a 3-5-2 might end up being a good shape for this. Just given the strength of the center back spot, given the strength of the center mids. It's really hard to put anybody in a tier next to Markanic and McKinnon, frankly, at the forward spot. So you're picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and with Skelton, just to kind of talk on that, One Knox was the team that played with 3 central defenders, with Danny Fernandez and Jalen Chrysler flanking either side of Skelton in the middle. And that man was a clearance machine and a block machine. Everything that got past the other defenders, he was there to make a stop. Utterly crucial to the McKeever and later Ilya Illich system for Knoxville. And yeah, somebody that would have got my vote if I had the ballot in League One.
So do we want to go with Skelton? Is everybody good with Skelton for center back?
Yes.
All right. Let's do, again, he is a SK.
Yeah, Skelton without the, you gotcha.
Yeah, there we go. Spelling, not my strong suit.
That's why you teach.
Yeah. Let's see. Now, if we're thinking third center back, let's go ahead and fill out the center back lineup. We have the one missing. So we have Mahoney, we have an Osmond, we have, other players that can be thrown in here. I'm good with throwing out Ordonez. He's not a part of this conversation for me. So I'm kind of down to Osmond or Mahoney.
I'm huge on Matt Mahoney. I think he maybe led the entire USL in pass completions. Just, terrific at setting the tempo for what the switchbacks wanted to do. Has the athleticism to keep up with that high line that they run. Often very strong as a man marker as well. He kind of brings the full complement of abilities to the table, and I think it's shown, especially in the playoffs. But he was the only guy who didn't miss a minute in the regular season amongst outfield players. He's just terrific and consistent and deserves the plaudits he's getting.
Yeah, I was leaning more on Matt Mahoney as well. Just, John, as you had mentioned, just having that Iron Man type of performance to not miss a season, to not miss a minute on the season, and to be as reliable as he was. He was averaging 52.9 accurate passes per 90. I really think he put in a performance that helped Colorado Springs keep the clean sheet in the final and ultimately win the league.
So we talked about it. Let's not fall into the trap here, people. We have 2 kind of creative midfielders. Do we have a center back or a central defensive midfielder that we want to stabilize this team? Because if we're going for defensive mid, I don't think you can go past McCabe.
Okay, what I will, just for the context, throw out that kudos to League One, because their second team had Chapa Herrera, Evan Lee, and Jimmy Villalobos. That's 3 very solid defensive mids, and I'm especially happy to see Evan Lee, somebody who doesn't get enough love. What I would posit is that when you've got Dolabella and you've got Taylor Davila, I think you've got enough heft that Aaron Malloy could maybe do the job as the third guy in there.
I'm not against it. I also think I'm willing to have the conversation of Chapa Herrera getting that center back or center defensive mid spot.
No, and I think that's a good argument. I'm trying to see. Malloy was somebody who kind of missed a stretch of the season, but he still finished 3rd or 2nd in the league in chances created. everything that he provides for me feels like it puts him over the top.
Okay. What say you, Ryan?
Yeah, I would lean more Moboy versus for this position. If you're looking at just the chances that he created, he also led the league in accurate passes per 90 at 66.8. From the defensive midfielder position, I feel like Moboy was pretty integral to Charleston Battery's success for this season, that I would put him as the nod to our starting 11.
And you think about that midfield pivot for Charleston, like there isn't really a traditional destroyer number 6 in that team. It's pretty much a shared duty between Malloy and Allen in any event. So, and I mean, ditto, honestly, with Davila and Winder. So I think if we're trying to stay loosely within the realm of a real shape that could play on a soccer field, we've done an okay job.
All right. Well, that leaves two. Either we either can have two wingers or midfielders, or we can have two wing backs, which I'm going to kind of think make the decision for us. You cannot have this without having Bruno Rendon at right back.
Well, hear me out. Guys that we've been praising throughout this little segment, Bruno Rendon and Ezra Armstrong, left and right. That feels like not only a systematic fit, but recognition of, in Bruno Rendon, pretty much like a singular offensive presence. Like nobody in League One or the championship does what he does from that spot. And I think Armstrong maybe isn't that remarkable in comparison, but he's somebody who was unbelievably strong for North Carolina, constantly making runs over the top, overlapping to the left side, had the recovery pace to do what was needed to keep that team solid in transition. Somebody who we've been banging the drum for all year, but I think didn't get enough love in general.
All right. Any kind of objections to this, Ryan, for the wingbacks?
No objections.
All right. So that leaves our goalkeeper position, where this is where you get into funky territory. Do you take Eric Dick, who was behind a very good defense, but also had a very high save percentage? Whatever came his way, he did save it, decent with his ball at his feet. Do you go with a Sean Lewis? Do you go with the Nuhu? Do you go with the Lalo Delgado? Or do you go with someone like a Ribeiro, who was at certain points a target practice and just stood on his head and really propelled Hartford to get into a playoff race in general? What are we kind of thinking at the GK?
I mean, I said in the comments, I'm a Ribeiro guy. I think he's, if not the sole reason that Hartford climbed back into the playoff race, certainly one of the primary causes for their revival later on in the season. That said, like what Eric Dick did behind the Pittsburgh defense was so impressive. And I think there is a tendency to look at Lily Ball and that team and say, oh, what the goalkeeper is doing isn't that impressive. But look at Jamali Waite, who's somebody who maybe didn't shine relative to other players while he was in Pittsburgh, and then came and stood on his head when he was in El Paso. Like there's a lot of kind of hidden talent going on in net there. But I kind of claim ignorance on the regular when it comes to goalies. I just don't quite have the eye in the same way that like people like Kaler do at that spot. So completely open to any opinion.
Yeah, I was split between Dick or Nuhu personally. Obviously, we've mentioned success that Pittsburgh has had this season, and it's been a hallmark of Lily Ball. But like for Union Omaha, for not just this season, but just for everything that they've kind of built this year, it's stopped and started with Nuhu in goal as one of just a hallmark, just cornerstone of their team. And I felt like it's just been another similar performance from Nuhu this year. But if I had to pick between the two, I would probably go with Dick.
See, this is where I'm just really torn, because I mean, it's just like midfielders now, because goalkeeper is not just your stop ball, do well. You know, you're looking for a lot. I think there's still a conversation of a Rocco Rios Novo if you really want to have it.
Now, if you're looking for a ball handling goalie, are you taking Rocco Rios Nova or Coque Vegas?
It's a great question. Personally, I think I would take, based on the year he had, I think I would go Rocco, but Koke was great. I just keep finding myself going back to Lalo, personally.
Yeah.
I watched him this year. I just can't help but love what he has done positionally. What he does with the ball at his feet is great. I think what he is able to do just as a shot stopper is just unworldly. I think you can also look at Ribeiro and just say what you did as a goalkeeper. You kept the goal. I feel like you have to reward that. I don't know. TLDR. This is where I'm really getting kind of held up on. Now, what I am more than happy to do here, and this is where maybe we can get our best of both worlds, where we can have essentially an 18 on the bench, quote unquote, and put whoever came in second and for some of these categories. I think
I absolutely refuse to do that. This is
fair
11
enough.
best players, and we're going for it. What I
Fair
will
enough.
say, because this is going to be dumb, but hear me out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm counting really poorly. Holy cow! We need another League One player to even this out. Is all I'm saying, because we've got more Championship guys than League One guys.
I mean,
Manager.
there is a manager conversation we need to have, but I think I would go Ribeiro or Lalo Delgado.
I think Lalo is so good at the things that are harder to catch statistically, like control of the box, some of what he does distribution-wise. He's not asked to be the Rocos Rios Novo that's stepping 30 yards out, but I think he's very strong distributionally for what that team is trying to do and how direct they tended to be in Northern Colorado. Pair that with shot stopping that, according to like goals prevented in the advanced numbers, was clearly in the top 20% of League One goalies. And I think that there's an argument for Lalo there.
All right. Are we just so we are kind of beating around the bush. Final votes?
I say Delgado.
I'm also going Delgado, Ryan.
Boom.
I'll be outvoted then.
All right, fair enough. I just wanted to see. All right, we will go Delgado. All right, with the GK
Ryan is,
spot.
writing for Dick.
You can't say that.
Well, I put the extra word in there, so we're clean.
Bless. All right. So, do we want to do a manager of the year?
I thought that was actually a great shout. So, yes.
All right. So, our two managers of the year. So, you are looking at Danny Cruz, or you are looking at. Did it end up being? I just talked to him. Oh my God.
Dom. Yeah.
Dom Casciato. Those were the two. Do we think those are the two? I mean, those are your Players' Shield winners, or do you think there was another coach that was more deserving?
Did we get a vote for Coach of the Year? I'm blanking.
I did.
Okay, then that's a yes. I voted for Eric Quill in that case because I think relative to expectation is how I tend to view Coach of the Year, right? New Mexico came into the season with a somewhat retained roster from a mediocre team, brought in a lot of guys that looked like MLS Next Pro standouts or solid League One players. And then New Mexico won the West going away in the regular season, which I put a lot more stock into because of some of the randomness with the playoffs. When you think about him, when you think about Dennis Sanchez in Las Vegas, there's a similar argument to make. Quill gets the edge just because of that little bit of extra improvement. I think there is an argument for Danny Cruz. Like, he'd be in the mix for me. What Pierman did in Charleston is really impressive when you consider how much of that team departed year over year. In terms of the championship, I would ride for Quill, but again, like, this more so than any other position really has been an impossible time for me.
Where would you at least place friend of the show, Connor Smith, in a year one expansion season to take it to the final? Obviously, from the start of the year, that they had difficulties getting results on the board, opening the year with as many draws as they did versus the wins, but to then kind of get hot at the right moment. I wouldn't necessarily put him as my manager of the year, but I do believe he is at least in the conversation to be one of the top 3 USL Championship managers from the season, just for it being year 1.
Same conversation you got for Lee Veidman, to be fair. Like, that is a conversation you could have about both of those. I think Kano has a little bit more weight to it because they were more consistent all year long. I don't think it's a bad shout. If we're talking about expectations, if you look at what was going on behind the scenes in Northern Colorado, the expectation is for them to end up like Fuego, and they won a championship.
I mean, I wrote a lot a couple weeks ago about the job that Eamon Zayed did. If you look at the XG numbers, Northern Colorado this season, across all competitions, was straight up the best team in the history of League One. And obviously the results didn't quite bear that out in terms of the playoffs, but I think we saw this team at their like juggernaut level best in the Jägermeister Cup. Eamon Zayed took a team that wasn't getting paid, had to be covered by the league in terms of their salaries, really got them to buy in and see the vision, come together and do what they did. I think there's a real argument to make for Eamon Zayed being the guy.
I would be happy with Eamon Zayed being named manager, just not just for what they achieved on the field, but like everything he had to manage behind the scenes and off the field. I believe it's just more of a testament to his leadership.
So I'm cool with either Eamon or Quill, which we haven't talked since Quill was officially named the manager at Dallas, which I'm going to be honest, he's been the manager of Dallas for the last like 6 months. That's just already happened.
As soon as Dallas fired their last guy, you knew Eric Quill at Dallas.
So I will say, at least shout out for at least Dallas and a few other MLS clubs to at least start looking into USL to bring in qualified managers from this division into the top flight. It's part of that path to pro that we've always been wanting to have. And it's not just players who get that next chance going up. It should also be the managers who get a chance to move up as well, rather than retreading the same Bruce Arenas or Bob or Greg Berhalters of the world.
I do think it is a little bit of a distinct situation just because he was involved with North Texas and had those ties. I still love to see it, but I would really love to see a club in MLS hire a USL manager that wasn't previously affiliated. Once we start to see that happening, like, I don't know, Danny Cruz gets hired by a team that isn't St. Louis, or Ben Pierman gets any job in the league, that's going to be a real kind of breaking the glass ceiling moment, and it's going to be a deserved one for whichever manager makes the jump.
We're still waiting on Bob Lilly to take over an MLS team.
What was the rumor?
Nashville.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan already showed us that he's going to go to Liverpool. So
that's right.
I just want to be a fly on the wall for Bob Lilly and the conversation for what designated players he would want.
Canardo Forbes, Danny Griffin.
So we're going Quill versus Zayed. Final votes.
Amen.
Zayed.
I will go Zayed as well. I think this color blue is the closest to his sweater, so I'm just gonna I don't know. Okay. Cool. So this is our best 11, and I am going to go back to front. Where you are going to have in goal, you have Yikes, who is that? Lalo Delgado. And we have a back 5, and going from our center backs first, Smith, Skelton, and Mahoney. For our 2 wing backs, you have Armstrong and Rendon. In the midfield, you have Malloy at the 6, and then your 2 other midfields are Dolabella and Davila. And up top, you have McKinnon and Mark Kanik. It's a dang good squad. So this is where I have to ask you guys. This team competes tomorrow in USL Championship for a full season, no injuries, whatever. This is the team with the manager of Eamon Zayed. How did they finish?
That is a tough question.
Which conference are we putting them in?
Probably the St. Louis Central Conference.
Yeah. The strength of that back line in that central midfield alone. The way that strike group is so mobile, this is going to be a team that's really hard to stop. Like, I'm not here to guarantee a title, but this feels like a club that would compete for home field advantage, certainly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. All right. So that is your best 11. I am going to go ahead and download this and post it later so we can get as much engagement as possible, of course.